welcome you back for episode 3 of Sideline Stories. I'm Rhett Bryan, but the man of the show and the star of the hour is Cody Allison, the first sideline reporter for Titans Radio. And it's going to be fun because you're already laughing.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I just snuck in the back door.
You're an important part of telling the Titans story as they became so entrenched in the Mid-South with, fans all over the Mid-South. But I thought these next couple we're going to do, folks, are going to be really, really good. They're going to be great. In fact, wherever you subscribe, it's on YouTube, it's on 1045thezone.com, titansradio.com, it's on Apple, Spotify, and we'll have new episodes dropping. So just stay tuned for that. This one we're going to title Sideline Oddities, and it is just that. Cody has some incredible stories about things that happened over the years when he was the sideline reporter, the very first one for Titans Radio. So I'm going to start with this one, Cody, because this one always blew my mind as I'm up there spotting for Mike and for Pat Ryan, and security guards on the road would try to throw you off the sidelines. And the reason it was mind-boggling to me is because here you are, you're in gear.
Right.
It clearly marks who you are, but you have a microphone with a mic flag on it saying Titans Radio. Who would go to such lengths to mock that up, to stay on a sideline and try to watch a ball game?
That'd be a lot, right?
It would. I mean, that's a lot of effort.
It's a lot of effort. And, I never figured that out. You've got the mic with the mic flag you were talking about. It's got the Titans Radio on it, but you've also got a pass around your neck, a credential. I mean, you're supposed to be down there, but yeah, it just kind of amazed me. I think the NFL was tightening up on security on the sideline, over the years. And the directives that were given out were just kind of like, if you're unsure, kick them out. And, I would go down. I can't remember how many times that happened, but I'd have to go back up to the booth and talk to Robbie Boren or Dwight Spradlin and say, hey, can you get me a different pass to get down here? They're not liking this one too much. And, one
they ended
time
up having to give you like an official pass, not just a field-only sideline.
Right, which is the team, the official team pass. So, yeah, we had to do that. I think one time it was I changed passes, went back down. They still wouldn't let me on the field. And so I just never figured that out. But, it was just little things like that you would have to, work through every game. And in their defense, I mean, they were probably just told, look, if this happens, you're not coming back. So they're trying to be extra, strict. So I understood that. But I thought there could have been more of a gateway, an easier way to get this done.
Okay, so, I mean, you have a job to do, for heaven's sake. Here's the thing, and I think you hit the nail on the head. For stadium security, a lot of them come in from other cities, other places. Mm-hmm. They're paid by the hour. They're trying to do their job, and they have been told, here is the book. Any deviation from the guideline, plan, protocol, and book is just do X, do Y, do Z. And I think you're right. I think it's like, listen, if you're unsure, just go.
Right.
But the wild thing is, and I remember you having to go back up to the Titans media relations staff to get another credential. All right, so one of the craziest ones that I remember, and I want you to tell this story, is when wide receiver Yancey Thigpen was almost kicked off the sidelines.
He was almost arrested.
Okay, go. Tell the story. I want to hear this again.
I think this was 2000.
Okay.
Playing at the Vet.
In Philadelphia, before Lincoln Financial Field, yes.
Right. So this place is old, and it was famous because it had a jail in the stadium.
And a judge on duty.
Right.
To go ahead and try you right there for public intoxication, whatever.
Right. So they had all this in the stadium because the Philly fans were known for being very, we'll call it enthusiastic.
Yeah, that's why I never understood the City of Brotherly Love moniker, because at those things, it's kind of the opposite of that. But go ahead.
Yeah, so we were down there, and there were 3 officers, kind of near the sideline, and Yancey had been injured maybe 1 or 2 games before. And so I think he had a surgery. He had a boot on, and so he was standing behind the bench. And typically, obviously, a player is going to be in the bench area, but they didn't want him getting run over. anything to mess with the surgery. So, and of course, he was a team leader at the time, right? So they wanted him on the trip, and he wanted to be there and encourage the guys. And but he was standing behind the bench, and I heard these three officers talking, and they looked at him and said, "Who is that guy?" I said, "That's Yancey Thigpen. He's, one of our best players. He's hurt. He's having to stand back here." And he said, "Well, he can't do that." I said, "Well, first of all, I'm not the guy to consult with on this. I'm just the sideline reporter. I have no authority, but this is why he's standing behind the bench." And they said, "Well, we've been told if anybody is outside the bench area on the field and we don't know what they're doing, we're supposed to arrest them." And I said, "You're telling me you're going to arrest Yancey Thigpen?" And they
Wow.
said, "That's absolutely right." And I said, "Do you see all those guys over there in shoulder pads right in front of him?" I don't think they're going to be too happy about that. But again, I understand you're trying to do your job, but you're making a big mistake here. And they said, "Well, that's it. We're going to do this." So they went over to talk to Yancey. And I think one of the coaches at that point came over and explained to them again what was going on. And eventually they left. But this was a big ruckus at the time, so much that we actually did a sideline report on that.
And if I remember correctly, Yancey was on crutches because this surgery had just taken place, and he was just in, like, not plain sweats, but Titan sweats. So he was basically in street clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to figure out, well, who is this guy and what is he doing? And I'd forgotten about the being behind the bench part, because
Right.
that is usually a lane that has to stay open so that the television camera trucks can go back and forth and people go back, and the parabolic mic operators, all those kinds of things. But I've forgotten about the arrest part, or near arrest, I should say.
Well, they had told me they're going to arrest him. They go over to talk to him and say, if he doesn't leave, we're going to arrest him. But, and again, the whole thing got diffused. But I remember there was like 5 minutes of, oh, my goodness, what's going to happen? Yancey Thigpen, who at the time was one of the top 10 wide receivers.
Well, he was
in the NFL.
One of the big free agent acquisitions
From Pittsburgh,
from the last year of the Tennessee Oilers.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him in and officially announced the signing on Valentine's Day of '98. It was Steve McNair's birthday. That was his gift.
Mm-hmm.
And they had just signed Craig Hentrick, who came from Green Bay, as the all-world punter. But yeah, he was a big deal that had been signed away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's amazing to me. And see, they've been given a directive.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, then we have to do this job.
Right.
And, of course, they're law enforcement, and they're like, what are you doing questioning my authority?
Right. Right. So it was a whole...
You're going to make a big mistake. I'm sure they're like, who are you, dude?
I'm like, I'm out of it. I mean, I'm just... But again, they heard me later actually doing a report on that and kind of gave me the side eye a little bit. But,
well,
I mean, hey,
what do you expect?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't, air dirty laundry. All kinds of people saw it on the edge of the stands, half the team, whatever.
And again, because in Philly they're so famous for that jail.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what made it even more
You remember going to
amplified.
see that when we were, setting up equipment?
Mm-hmm.
It was wild.
Yeah.
You'd heard stories about it, and you're like, okay. And, somebody
this
was
place didn't
stadium.
seem very fun.
And somebody with stadium operations like, you want to see it? I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see, the holding cells and the judges' chambers.
Right.
And by George, there it is. And I think they have one of those at Lincoln Financial Field also, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so this is Sideline Oddities. That's why we said this episode of the podcast for Sideline Stories with Cody Allison. This is living up to its namesake, because this next one is interesting to me, because we've had conversations, Mike Keith and all of our Titans radio crew, about, odd weather games. I mean, we did the longest game in NFL history in 2018 in Miami with 2 different 2+ hour lightning delays. I don't ever want to relive that again. But there was one game that I'll never forget that we were all involved in. There was a hurricane that was heading towards the Florida coast. Mm-hmm. And because this hurricane was still tracking that way, they ramped up and moved game day from Sunday to Saturday. And I remember because of that, it threw off all of the prior operations departments and their staff, their reservations. They did all that way in advance. And we stayed in some crazy motel or whatever. And But I just remember how crazy that was that we were going to go play on a Saturday.
Right.
And I relived a thought of that again back during COVID when the Titans had the COVID outbreak and they had to play on Tuesday night against the Buffalo Bills here in 2020, which was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that like from your perspective?
Well, I'll tell you. Guess who was born on Sunday?
That
My daughter Maggie
Maggie
was born on Sunday. We would have been in Miami. So
that is exactly why I brought this up, because that's what I remember the most out of all of that experience. Had that not happened, you would have missed the birth of your first child.
Right. So it was just kind of surreal, but from the game standpoint, I mean, to move an NFL game up a day like that, as you were saying, it's a lot of work. It's not like they just say, okay, everybody show up here. I mean, you've got to change everything.
Right.
And so it was amazing to me that even got pulled off. And whatever they were expecting on Sunday came through. It was a big deal. It would have stopped the game.
Yes.
So that was just one of those kind of random things. But I guess that's the only time the Titans have ever played.
They've played on every other day of the week.
In the regular season.
Yes, and they've played on every other day of the week except a Wednesday. And I feel with the way the league and television contracts are going, that probably will be a thing before too long because of the Tuesday thing I just mentioned during COVID.
Yeah.
The thing I remember the most about that is getting updates from Nashville. It's like, okay, I think we're going to be okay. And she was born literally the night we got back, right?
Yeah.
In the wee hours?
Yeah, yeah.
So early Sunday morning?
Yeah. So that's where you're just saying that, thank you, God.
It happened for a reason.
Yeah.
It absolutely happened for a reason.
Well, it was good for me.
I remember, I think the other thing I remember about that game was Lamont Thompson had a big game in that for the Titans secondary. He had a pick six, maybe. And that was when, like, he and Lance Schulters were back in the secondary.
Right.
And it was a big thing for Lamont because he was a former Dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that really stands out to me about that is, do you remember when we left the stadium and we were going to the airport?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? What that was like?
Yes. Well, I mean, we didn't know if we were going to get back.
Well, the other part was, I remember vividly us looking at each other on the interstate, and all lanes out of the main artery of Miami north were both egress.
Mm-hmm.
What in any other day would have been in and out on one side of the retaining wall.
Mm-hmm.
It was all egress out, and there was nobody on the road with us. The police escort, we didn't even really need one.
Right.
And you saw all these people lined up, going, doing whatever. It was something out of one of those in-game world ender, Hollywood summer blockbuster movies.
Right. And of course we made it there. But I mean, I remember thinking during the game, are we going to be able to fly out of here?
Yeah.
I mean, is this storm going to move in? They're going to ground the plane, and then we're just there.
Because the winds at then, whatever it was called, I always think of it as Joe Robbie Stadium. It's now Hard Rock. The winds were an issue that day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something I'll never forget.
Yeah.
That was wild.
I think that's the only time we had a game moved, regardless.
Yeah, I don't remember any other time. And, there's been some through the last 2.5 decades where there were games moved because of wildfires out west or whatever, but that obviously didn't affect us. We didn't have the opponent or whatever that was. All right, so it's halftime of Sideline Stories with Cody Allison. And Cody Allison and his team have been representing clients across the Mid-South for over 25 years. Their team knows how to take on the big insurance companies. If your ERISA employee benefits have been denied, don't go it alone. Get the help that you deserve. Visit CodyAllison.com. His team will take care of you for sure. Now, second half of Sideline Stories, Episode 3, Sideline Oddities. This is one of my favorite stories that I cannot wait for you to share.
Oh, goodness. What's this?
And I believe this was a preseason game. Tell me about the night in Green Bay, Wisconsin, when Joe Nedney missed the practice kicking net on the sideline, and you happened to be in the line of fire.
Yeah, I took a bullet. I'm going to tell you, if you're at home ever watching an NFL game and you're like, man, what would it be like to, have the ball right off the kicker's foot hit you, what would that
Point
feel
blank
like?
range.
It hurts. let, me, let me tell you. Yeah, so there was a preseason game. It was second half, I think, early fourth quarter. And so, of course, Joe Nedney, let's go ahead and, set the whole picture. This guy's 6'5", right? He was the biggest kicker in the NFL, one of the strongest legs in the NFL, eventually went on to kick for the Niners because he could kick in the swirling winds at Candlestick. I mean, this guy had a big leg. And I think everybody's seen that practice net, right before the big field goal, they show the kicker into the practice net in the sideline. I have never in my life seen a kicker miss that net. I mean, it's just a direct shot into the net. So for me, as a sideline reporter, one of the safest places to be to get my information together, get ready for a report, is near the kicker's net just behind it. Because one, the kicker's not going to miss. Two, there's a barrier there. If somebody comes off the field and I'm not looking, it's kind of like a protected zone. And so I'd always kind of stood there. So this was early fourth quarter. Nedney's going to go out and kick this, I don't know, 40-yard field goal. So he's warming up. And all of a sudden, you hear the boom off the foot. And it felt, I've never been shot, but I can only imagine it kind of feels like that. He hit me just above the left cheek, down near the kidney.
Oh, my God.
And I immediately lost my breath and went down. This was point blank range. And
NFL kicker. 6'5" NFL kicker.
Right. And lost my breath, immediately went down to my knees and could not breathe and could not move. At first, I'm like, I had no idea what happened. And, of course, it immediately dawns on me, he's missed the net. Well, this is fourth quarter in Green Bay preseason. For those of you who've never been to Lambeau, they are known for many things, but one thing they're known for is they have more draft beer taps than any other stadium. They brag about this. Do you remember they showed us all this?
I do remember that.
Okay. It's Wisconsin. This was early fourth quarter Green Bay. There had been consumption throughout the game.
For a while.
And I look up and I see these people with cheese blocks on their heads laughing hysterically at me. And again, if I could have laughed at that moment, I would have laughed with them, but I couldn't breathe. I go down and one of the trainers ran over to me to try to help me up. They've seen this happen. Nedney looks at me, he says, sorry, and he had to run in the game. So he's gone. So the trainer takes me over, and Burton Elrod, the great orthopedic for the Titans for years, he actually has to check me out on the sideline to make sure I'm okay. He thought I broke my hip or something. Again, not wearing any padding or anything. I mean, it's just a direct shot. But I didn't walk straight for the next 2 weeks. And I think Larry even had fun reporting that later in the game because I was MIA the rest of the game. So I'm over there, the training staff. And I remember getting on the plane to go back. Dr. Elrod comes back to check on me. And he brought me some medication to help me out, for the long flight.
So, couple things that I'm thinking about. If I'm not mistaken, there was a long, explosive style play to get them into scoring range, and I think that's what distracted Nedney and why he missed the net.
Right.
Is that? Do I remember
you hear
that
the crowd
correctly?
going crazy,
Right?
Because he doesn't know. He thinks, "Oh, I'm not going to have to kick. Maybe we're going to score." And there was some tackle that saved the touchdown, whatever. So he's going to have to go kick. So he looks away because Joe Nedney, a great kicker in NFL history, but I think he's only missed one. The great thing about that is about what I want to say, maybe at the end of the season, I had ridden with Mike to a game, and Mike parked in S lot, which is the player lot.
Correct.
And so Mike, and I are talking to people in the booth, and we're late getting out, and we walk to his car, and guess the players sometimes would have tailgates in S lot after the game with their families. And all of a sudden, look over, and there's Joe Nedney with his dad, who's in town. So Joe introduces Mike to his dad, And then Mike turns to Joe and says, "Do you remember this guy?" He goes, "Well, yeah, I know he's on the sideline, but he couldn't remember my name." And he said, "Do you remember what happened in Green Bay?" And Joe Nedney he put his hands on his head. He goes, "Oh my God, you're the guy I kicked." He goes, "I've never missed that net in my life. I don't know any kickers that have. I just got distracted." He goes, "I'm so sorry." And he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I can walk again, so that's fine. I'm doing better." But he got his dad got a kick out of it. Pardon the pun.
So, yes, pardon the pun. The other thing, I remember distinctly you getting on the charter plane and you were, I mean,
I couldn't walk.
I said, "Dude, are you okay?"
Yeah.
Because Larry had reported that, our sideline reporter, caught some friendly fire.
Yeah.
And I remember the next 2 or 3 weeks, it's like you were not moving gingerly, as we say.
Right.
He didn't need any assistance. He goes under his own power to the sidelines. Gingerly is the man. I will never, ever forget that. And just for as long as I can live. And the other thing I keep thinking is, imagine, because this is, 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. It wasn't it could have been 2004 because he tore his hamstring right before the regular season. So it could have been 2004. There were several years that they either came here or we went there.
Right. And, of course, loved going to Lambeau.
Oh, of
It was
course.
just great.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Lambeau, before the game, we would do the, kind of the, fan story occasionally. And
Yes.
Lambeau was a great place to do that. So I go down to interview a couple of Green Bay fans at their tailgate. And they said, "You're going back up to the booth with Titans radio?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Hold on." They pulled out some metal pan or whatever and loaded it with brats and all the sides. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And I brought it back up, and they made our tailgate up in the booth.
They're wonderful people.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. The distinction and difference I think there is that it was the Titans. If this was somebody in the NFC North,
Right.
probably wouldn't, if it were the Vikings
Right.
or we were the Lions,
Right.
probably wouldn't have been as friendly. But they have been fantastic anytime we've ever gone there. The other thing I was thinking about this, imagine if this was 20 years forward and that had happened, you would have been viral.
Mm-hmm.
People that had posted that on, recording, you would have been a viral moment.
I never thought about that.
You would have been,
But you're right.
What is it, a GIF or a meme?
Yeah.
You would have been that.
Yeah.
Because,
And again,
they
I
do
thought
those-
it was hilarious. I just couldn't laugh at the time because I couldn't get my
right.
breath.
It's like,
but-
we're not laughing at you. Like, I
Yeah.
was generally concerned after I saw you. I was like, oh, no. Because there's no telling what the speed, that ball coming off of his
Well,
foot.
it basically hit me in the kidney.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me
I
a
don't
minute
think
to get
it could
up.
have hit you anywhere. And it probably would have hurt bad, but that was,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I just remember looking up and they got all the beads on and they got all the cheese heads and they're just laughing hysterically, pointing. And I just remember going,
in ingesting a little liquid courage the whole time. So it was extra funny because of that.
yeah.
What do you remember? There was a couple times where crazy stuff happened in Green Bay, and I mentioned the longest game in NFL history. The longest broadcast we did prior to that was the fourth and final preseason game one year in Green Bay when it came a pretty decent lightning storm.
Yeah, and that was Rocky Kalmus's last game because he
Correct.
came out after those delays, ripped his hamstring. I don't think he ever played again.
I don't think he did either.
So that was that. I remember that being an issue, but yeah, it was lightning delays. And so they kept going, back into the tunnel. I mean, one time for an hour, then back out, then back in for 30 minutes. And obviously these players are trying to keep warm, And I remember Rocky Kalmus came out after like the third time and ripped his hamstring.
Yeah, he did. Because that was, if I remember correctly, that stoppage was just before the 2-minute warning of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of that lightning delay. And I remember Larry telling me, he's like, yeah, I played every commercial we could play. We took so many breaks.
Oh,
and
we
it
were
was-
doing crazy filler, on the
Yeah.
And of course I can't do anything from the sideline because I'm down there holding a mic.
Yeah, that's kind of
Waiting for a lightning strike. So I'm up there and we're just doing whatever we can do. But I was going to ask you, other than so obviously 2018 was the longest game.
Yeah.
Was that the second Longest.
In Titans history, yes. In league history, no.
Right.
Longest regular season game prior to that was 5 hours and change, and that was the Bears, and I forget who the other opponent was.
But Titans, number 2.
Yeah. Now, that game in the preseason, number 2, they own the dubious distinction of having the 7-hour, 8-minute game in September of 2018.
By the way, I listened to you guys during that game. You're doing a great job, but I was like, they're not going off the air. Let's talk about that real quick. You guys were just unbelievable. It's like to fill for that long and stay on the air is incredible.
I'll never forget Coach Mack opening the door, and here is Bob Greasy, Hall of Famer for the Dolphins, and Jimmy Cefalo, and they're like, what in the hell are you guys doing? We sent this back to the studio a long time ago. It's like, well, this is how we operate. Because Mike had devised a weather plan, and we had all these long-form, interviews. But we only had so much for so much fill time, not knowing it was going to be this long. And so Larry Stone did a great favor for us and Dropboxed us and sent us some long-form
jokes or something.
Well, no, he had, remember when he interviewed Mr. Adams for the anniversary of the AFL when we played in the Hall of Fame game in 2009. Right. He had that great interview. We had all kinds of stuff. So went through every bit of that. But I knew it was going to be a long, long day when Mike starts looking and talking about all the Ring of Honor members in the Dolphin. And Mac was like, yeah, he played here.
Mac knew them all, right?
Right, he knew them all. He knew them all. But that night in Green Bay, because the other part of it, I remember how mad our color analyst, former Vol quarterback Pat Ryan, he said, I could have been to Knoxville by now.
Right.
And do you remember what the other deal was as to why the thing kept going on and on and on? They usually, if that happened in this day and age, they just call the game.
Right. And I think that became precedent for, again, especially after the Calmus.
Well, do you remember why?
Why is it?
They couldn't locate the now late NFL commissioner, Paul Tagliabue.
Call the game.
They could not, and he was somewhere in the Hamptons or something.
I'd forgotten that.
They couldn't locate him.
They were trying. They're trying to end this thing. Both teams wanted to go home.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that game, it went on for. So yeah. So they they finally are about to end the lightning delay, and so it's clear for the players to come back and warm up. They start, and then boom, 2-minute warning, and they have halftime. And anyway, it was wild. All right. I want to ask you this because to wrap this thing up, this is Oddities. There were moments where fans threw objects at you, or maybe not directly intended for you, but at the opposing team.
Yeah. So they
Cleveland
were intended
was one
for
of them,
me,
right?
but also others. Yeah. So obviously, getting a beer dumped on you is a big thing. So every time, and I'm like, these guys are dumping, $15 beer. Don't you want that? So I remember you had to, when I came out of the tunnel, I had to run out of the tunnel. Because if I walked out of the tunnel and I had opposing team gear on, somebody's throwing a beer at me. So this was, and again, these places have great qualities too. I'm just saying.
You're not trying to say disparaging things about the city.
A few Ruckus fans, but Cleveland, Philly, Oakland, Buffalo. And you had to be careful in all those stadiums. But there was one great story, and I think it was 2008, because I think it's the only time Tennessee started 9-0.
Started 10-0.
Yeah, 10-0, okay.
Went 13-3.
That's right. So this was the 9-0 game. We were playing at Oakland, and Javon, who had left for Philly, then came back. He was with us for 08 and 09.
Yep.
He's number 90. So we were about to win the game late in the fourth quarter. The Oakland fans are just furious. And, again, it's Halloween there every game, right? They're all dressed up. It's just crazy. And so one of the trainers comes over and gets a piece of, a little rectangle piece of duct tape and puts it between Javon's 90. So it equals 9-0.
I forgot about that. Because this is the Tennessee Tyrants defense.
Right.
With Keith Bullock and those guys.
Right.
Yes.
And so puts that duct tape there because we were going to 9-0, Javon's 90. And he turns around and shows it to the crowd. Okay. This is kind of a family podcast. I can't repeat what was said or the gestures that were made, but
But it's literally throwing gas on a bonfire.
You can figure it out.
Yeah.
And so Javon sits back down on the bench. I'm right behind him, and all of a sudden, I feel something whiz past my left ear, and it clips him, just barely grazed him, and goes on. And he turned around and looked at me, and he goes, "What was that?" We both looked down. Somebody had thrown a D-sized battery at his head for doing the 9-0 thing. And almost got me in the process.
For the young Titans fans watching and listening,
yes,
D-cell is one of the bigger batteries.
Yeah, you have to explain this, right?
Yeah,
Please. Yeah.
Because everybody knows like a AAA and a AA and a 9-volt maybe. This is the biggest of those size batteries that usually would go in your grandpa's flashlight or whatever.
It can hurt you.
It could absolutely. I mean, any of those others probably not good, but that'd leave a mark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the other thing, for history purposes, for the young fans listening and watching, Cleveland, Ohio, and the Cleveland Browns fan base is the reason why they don't allow glass beer bottles in the games anymore. Because if you'll remember, a few years prior to one of those incidents, there was a bad call, and I can't remember, I don't know if it was like playoffs were on the line or whatever. Anyway, they threw beer bottles at the officials going in and out of the tunnel, to your point. And all of a sudden now it's all cans or whatever. And for a while, some plastic beer bottles. But yeah.
Well, they only got me one time with a huge, 16-ounce beer one time. Again, this is pregame.
And this is coming out of the tunnel?
Yeah. So I think one of the trainers went and got me a,
You smell like a brewery.
Shirt. Oh, yeah. I was just soaked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway.
This is why we do this, people, and that's why I want you to like, rate, subscribe. Find it where you can find these podcasts. They're on 1045thezone.com, titansradio.com, YouTube, obviously, and also on Apple and Spotify. This is fun, and we're going to get into some really fun stuff in the next episode, too. But I want you to join us as we drop these episodes and enjoy the stories that Cody, again, has never really told anyone before. Our friend circle, sure, but not in a forum like this or a platform like this. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Sideline Stories with Cody Allison. This has been fun. It's going to continue to be fun. I can't wait for the next episode, Cody.
Absolutely.
For Cody Allison, I'm Rhett Bryan. Thank you all for watching and listening.